why can't you get a business off the ground quickly based on learnings and a proven concept that works, but you've applied it in a different way, or you've improved it significantly, or you've seen an opportunity in the market that's opened up? Success doesn't mean novelty and innovation in the way that a lot of times people think about it. It's about really being innovative within a business that you believe you can succeed in and that you understand and that you can really be an expert and a leader in instead.
Hi, Nina. Thank you for joining us. Really great to have you, especially when your business is flying as it is. I recently seen your investor update and the numbers were going through the roof. I always love when an entrepreneur's on a high, and you mentioned briefly just a second ago to me, your team is buzzing. And that's what kind of makes momentum happen for me. So do you mind introducing your business name and what it does for our listeners today?
Absolutely. Really happy to be here having this conversation with you, Mark. I'm Nina Briance, the founder of Cult Mia, and we're the independent luxury fashion marketplace for the world.
There's a little piece that people don't know about your business. I wanted to make a luxury fashion investment for a long time. I watched the Farfetch of the world scale, get the VC. And, one of my theses for years was the luxury space online is perfect. Users like to spend a lot of money. They want unique pieces. I'm less a fan of big brand, and I think you can get that anywhere. And real luxury isn't about looking like a clone like everyone else with an expensive piece or a logo, in my opinion. So when we seen your business, it was a real interesting fit for us. And it took me a little while to persuade the rest of our team because they consumer marketplaces, and the market's been an interesting market for some winners and losers in this high-end space, different business models and all of this. And we'll probably talk a little bit later about what's unique about your business and why you're winning, especially on the independent designer point of view. But let's start with your background and your journey. Kind of tell me a little bit about your background and what kind of inspired you to be here today and start what you're doing.
Absolutely. I would say I had a less traditional path to fashion. So I started my career in investment banking at Goldman Sachs and UBS, and I got to focus on consumer tech companies that were preparing for their IPOs, which gave me the front row seat to how some of the biggest businesses scaled quickly. I was always a fashion lover in my personal time, and I was figuring out a way to get a step closer. And I ended up joining the United Nations International Trade Center after banking. And there I was helping women-led retail businesses in developing countries expand internationally. I would say that their creativity and resilience in some of the most extreme environments, whether it was deep levels of poverty, violence, and seeing them kind of scale their businesses inspired me to start something of my own. And so while I was doing my MBA here in London, where I'm based, I ended up working part-time for a company called Mode Operandi, which is the American equivalent to Farfetch, which you just mentioned. And there I saw a gap in the market, and I saw that shoppers were looking for the few unique brands that Moda was introducing to the luxury consumer. They were selling as much as the Gucci's on the platform, but it was really clear that these independent designers lacked the visibility that they deserved. And that led to launching Cult Mia to give these independent designers a global platform.
Mm-hmm. Fascinating background, actually. I didn't quite remember or know all of that. So the ingredients of your experience, I think, naturally led you here. So especially with the insights into the IPOs and what success looked like at the later stages, fascinating, right? And do you think timing has been important to your success? Because this online luxury space has developed over time and it's taken time for adoption and business models had to be tested and trust built and all of the above. And do you think the people that have been before you have helped shape or I don't know, lead the direction of the business you're building today?
I think there are so many important lessons learned from the incumbents who've really kind of paved the way for Cult Me in many ways. Because when Farfetch was launched, for example, finding luxury online was a novelty. And that was the pain point that they were solving. Fast forward about 15 years, luxury is everywhere online. You can find luxury at Gucci.com, on Harrods, on net or Farfetch, matches before they wound down most recently. So I think seeing an empty space become crowded and understanding what the recipe of success was around the businesses that have succeeded during some of the most difficult financial geopolitical times has absolutely paved the way. And I would say what I saw as nascent trends, independent fashion, sustainable and ethical underpinnings, that desire for the luxury shopper to go beyond the brand. And I really share that definition that you mentioned at the start of the podcast, where uniqueness, high quality, that's the new definition of luxury rather than all the brands that you know and you can find everywhere. These have become, I would say, prevailing tailwinds almost 5 years later into launching the business. So, long-winded answer, absolutely. I think now is the time in terms of what's happening in the market. And I had a crystal ball feeling that we would end up here. What I didn't imagine
Mm-hmm.
was how quickly the market would shift and the consolidation that's been happening over the last 6 months in particular.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Sometimes timing is really important for entrepreneurs, and you were right. You caught on to these, I don't know, changing or evolving or fast growing trends in the market. And some of them were obvious. It's just when are they going to catch and become mainstream? And you've talked about, and we're all aware of, the risers and fallers in this space. Some of these massive names should be here and thriving today. And for whatever, I'm not inside their business. You might have more insight than I do. But how the mighty have risen and fallen in that space of time is fascinating because it's down to business leadership and management and strategy, which all of these things can go wrong inside scalability. Everything can change, or competition or whatever. But I think you're in, or entrepreneurs of today are in, a fascinating position because if you take time to read and research, you can learn from their mistake. They're costly mistakes. Someone else's investment dollars have fine-tune their mistakes or give conclusions to what maybe not work or what needs to be done differently. So I think all of them things coming together probably help you create a better business today. And there's a famous saying, Google wasn't the first search engine, and look, it's massive now, right? And it disrupted by being better, doing it differently. I think it's also hard in business to be a brand known for something and moving in a new direction. Consumers are really fickle and struggle to go with that flow. Some people do it successfully, some people don't. So I would say you come in as a fresh brand and really focusing on all your areas you've just highlighted makes you that specialist or go-to place versus one of these other, I don't know, monumental brands that are well established, adding this as a channel or a vertical, and it doesn't quite work as well for them. Have you seen that?
I couldn't agree more. I think I would say two points stood out to me from listening to kind of your perspective. One is customers are smarter than businesses like to think, and all of a sudden you change the tagline for Amazon to luxury. I don't think it's going to pick up immediately or work, right? Because Amazon's there for fast reliability, prime benefits, you name it. It's not the luxury fashion destination for the world. And it might never be because that brand association may take a very, very long time. And we'll see what happens with, the fast fashion South Korean player that acquired Coupang, that acquired Farfetch, and what that would look like, and that impact. But I would say the second point is, as a founder, I remember feeling a lot of pressure when I was thinking about what business I wanted to set up, that I needed to reinvent the wheel somehow, that I needed to create, a crazy new technology that no one had heard of. And then I thought to myself, why? Why can't you make good businesses with large addressable markets, with sound economics, work better than others? Um, why can't you get a business off the ground quickly based on learnings and a proven concept that works, but you've applied it in a different way, or you've improved it significantly, or you've seen an opportunity in the market that's opened up? And that's probably one of the most now obvious lessons learned to me, now that I'm, later on into this journey, that I think for any entrepreneurs listening, it's super important to know that, success doesn't mean novelty and innovation in the way that a lot of times people think about it. It's about really being innovative within a business that you believe you can succeed in, and that you understand, and that you can really be an expert and a leader in instead.
I think that's good advice, actually, and very much for what the concept of this whole podcast is about. I think I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, and a lot of time I just hear, I just still looking for the idea, and they want to be entrepreneur and they want to do the breakout. And you're right. I do agree. It's rare that there's something so innovative and so different. You don't get me wrong, that will be highly successful in the market, but they are rare. They don't come along very often, game changing strategies and technology. So doing something well in a big addressable market, taking market share, or even growing as a market grows. Exactly, you hit the nail on the head there, in my view. So that's exactly, you tick all of them boxes, and you're there to tell the success story so far, right? We make it sound easy. You make it sound easy because there's so many moving parts in your business that you have to get right. And I don't know, if you agree or not with this mantra, but I always say, to when I look another entrepreneur in the eye, I always just said, a success story, like whatever that it means to different people, is about winning more than you lose. Because don't get me, if you ask me, really, if I really dug into my own journey, I messed up loads of times. I made bad mistakes loads of times. I would have done things different, so much more, older, wiser, and all of the above. But fortunately, I made some good decisions, and the good decisions outweighed the bad decisions, and I delivered value, and I delivered revenue and profitability. I think if the balance shifts the other direction and you're average or not so good, you've just got to, do you believe in that? You've got to be better than it. I don't know how good you can be if you're brilliant on all scales, which is impossible. I don't know anyone that's that good, right? I think you mentioned Amazon a minute ago. Even Amazon's very good, brilliant, we could say, from the outside looking in. I bet you internally there's a lot of rough edges and moving parts and headaches and broken parts, but they win overall on size and scale. I don't know. Do you see that in your daily business? Because I'm not here to say, tell me all the problems, because it's about fight. Every entrepreneur I look in the eye, it's about fighting fires. There's 100 things that are happening, could happen, could go wrong, but you've got to focus your energy on being good enough in some areas. I don't think you can be perfection in everything, and focusing your energy on the things that will change the dial. Do you see that or believe that from your operational experience?
I think you have to pick your battles, and everyone says this, but I think it's very true. You have to ruthlessly prioritize. There's no way you can invest the energy that you want to invest in every area of the business all at once and absorb all the growth opportunities that are around you in every direction that you look. It's just not possible. And I think, going back to your point, it's really about knowing your strengths, because if you are succeeding in a business, you are good at something. You're better at some things than other things. and no one's amazing at absolutely everything. So it's really leaning on those strengths. And I don't mean you as an individual, but collectively as a team, and understanding where those real strengths lie. And then zooming further out and saying, what is the real strength of the business? Because as a fashion company, for example, an online business, an e-com business, there's a lot of routes we could go down and double down on. Is it tech differentiation? Is it kind of the fashion perspective and the designers and the partnerships that we have in place? Is it the brand? Is it a mix? But we'll need to lean in more or less in different points of our journey and really recognizing what will make the biggest difference. Right now, a very simple example, adding a fancy new feature to our website isn't why someone's going to buy something from Colmia. But securing a really cool exclusive new brand that we know will be the next big name in fashion, that's where we know our strength lies. And that's where we know kind of the why someone comes to us right now. But maybe in 10 years, actually, that incremental e-com feature is what will drive growth because we've nailed everything else. That's kind of how I think about the business, but it's obviously easier said than done because I, by nature, am a very impatient person, and my team knows that if I had it my way, I would want everything done immediately. Is probably my middle name all at once, and it's actually something that I constantly work on, and kind of leaving exciting opportunities for the right moment and knowing when to go after what.
This is another trait I see in some successful founders and some people that maybe not get a concept off the ground. How did you know when there was enough to launch? Because you've just talked two-sided marketplace. That sounds like, and I can imagine it was, a lot of work, a lot of admin, a lot of cost and resources on your side to find the suppliers, upload them, vet them, all of that important stuff. A lot of time and energy to make sure your shop marketplace is ready before you even put an item for sale. And some people would say you need X amount of product to even have a shop. And what is right, wrong? I mean, do you remember what the numbers were when you started? And what was it? How did you attract customers with a slim selection? But being unique items, I guess it's always intriguing. It's like a treasure trove of discovery. That's probably one of your biggest benefits of your business, right?
Yes, but I would say we actually took a slightly different marketing tack as we were scaling up, which was centered around what I used to call digital pop ups. So it was a very lean curation. Imagine 5 or 10 designers that you couldn't find anywhere else in the world except for on Coltmia. We were focused on the UK market specifically at the time. And we were saying, we have brought you the coolest brands from Beirut, from Colombia, from South Africa, and we've curated the 10 coolest resort wear brands going into summer. You can shop them on Coltmia only for a month, and then they're going to be gone. And we were trying to kind of package a smaller volume of products and brands in an interesting way with a sense of urgency and a clear marketing need and kind of, I would say, value prop to the customer, whilst knowing we didn't have enough brands and shoppers generally to compete against a Farfetch. So we did a few of those kind of curated drops with specific themes that made sense to market and to start building up traction with customers. And in the back end, we kept onboarding more and more designers, surely but slowly, until by the end of that first year with 100 brands, we were like, okay, we don't need to do these curated drops and this kind of niche marketing focus anymore. Let's properly introduce Coltmia as the destination to shop luxury independent fashion generally. Now you have a wide selection. And I think we had at that point maybe 10 product categories, designers from 30 different countries, 10,000 SKUs. Like it was a robust offering.
It's a real size and scale. I think that's fascinating insight. Thank you. What you've basically just told me is you had that challenge. You didn't have a mass marketplace with tons of product online, and that is a real chicken and egg for most commerce businesses.
Mm,
But you positioned it differently. That's
mm,
basically what you did. You created a unique proposition or story of the reason why you were onboarding independents one by one, which is discovery. And that kind of worked in the early days. And once you were up to size and scale, it worked. So
mm.
fascinating. And here you are, you've got the size and scale, and the momentum and the snowball effect continues, right? It's much easier to build and scale that business now. Going on to the entrepreneurship kind of area, which is very important. What's your biggest learning experiences as a founder? So you, in this journey, what have you learned the most? What's been the things that maybe it changed you, or what weren't you expecting? Any key takeaways there?
Mm. I think adaptability has been one of the biggest lessons. The industry that we operate in, the fashion industry, is very fast moving. As a founder, you really need to be ready to adjust quickly, whether it's refining strategies based on customer feedback, navigating new logistical challenges. For example, the Ukrainian war broke out and we had three out of our top 10 designers based in Ukraine. That was interesting. Responding to market trends, being flexible, and really staying focused on, I would say, the long term vision while navigating day to day challenges has been really key to growing Cult Mia and keeping us ahead of the curve. So, all of this to say, it's about balancing and adaptability and never feeling too precious about what you've built so far and knowing that you can always continue to improve it, I think is something that has really carried me through so far to date.
That's good. I mean, I think that makes sense. Adapting and evolving is super important. I think it's very rare a business or a founder or entrepreneur says this is the plan clearly, and the plans, when I say executed, pans out like that. If you are adaptable, you can really take opportunities, timing, whatever doors are open, even when your competitors come and go or evolve. There's real agility into being a younger business, right? So that makes sense. How do you balance creativity and the business acumen focus? Like, you've obviously got to wear the business hat, and it's revenue and P&L and even investment. You've taken venture capital money, right, to scale this business. And you also are creative. You like fashion. It's a very creative industry. You're working with independents. It's super important. They want their brand and business presented to a T. How do you balance both hats? Because they've all got to work in synergy to be successful.
I think our business by nature combines the two. And I think something that I saw very clearly in the fashion industry was the fact that the business of fashion was missing. And I would say that we bring a very strong business lens to some of the most creative minds in the industry, which are the designers we work with. And they focus on kind of that fashion innovation and creativity, and we bring that strategy and structure that's required for fashion businesses to survive. Some of kind of medium, large scale brands are struggling because that kind of business acumen seems to be really missing across the industry. And personally, I would say as a founder, applying creative problem solving is essential to everything I do on a daily basis. And it's about really aligning kind of the artistic vision with smart business practices and ensuring kind of success for both the designers, our brand, and the platform.
Yeah, you're right. I think maybe the business naturally leads itself to working hand in hand with the all objectives there. And you're right. It's super important for entrepreneurs at your stage to focus on the business fundamentals and KPIs to make sure it's a good balance and act and scalable. Some businesses aren't scalable. If you don't get them, I think that's what's happened in some of the other players in the industry. They probably haven't got
Mm.
the business model right early days. They've chucked a lot
Mm.
of money at it, and you question if it didn't scale at early stages. Why is it going to scale at later stages? We've seen that in the headlines and outcomes that have happened. Right, Fashion Month. Not something I know a lot about, but definitely something a lot about your world. Is that really impactful for your industry? And tell me about how does it change or evolve for emerging designers? And is it a big event and a month for your industry?
It's pretty huge still in the industry, but I would say it's still predominantly dominated by the mega known luxury brands. And that can make it really difficult for emerging designers to break through the noise. And I think Cult Mia really has a key role to play here. And we work closely with our brands to help them stand out, capture attention, pool resources collectively in a highly competitive period within an already highly competitive industry. I think Fashion Month is really important because it provides probably unparalleled exposure for new talent. Um, and they have that platform and that opportunity to gain that visibility, connect with global retailers, global audiences that are really focused on, who the winners of Fashion Month are every year, to really position emerging brands as kind of the next big names in fashion. But having said that, it's a big investment for these designers. And fewer brands, both big and small, have the budgets to put together a big fashion show and fashion parties and compete and get all the celebrities and influencers to attend. So I think there's still a place for Fashion Month, but I would always challenge our brands to think, very critically on what role they can play and if there are other opportunities as well to break out outside of such a competitive time.
Yeah, and focusing on one kind of calendar month of the year as a fashion, I don't know, trend setter, all of this, presenting collections. Is your business and are your clients, customers impacted by the trends set by some of these big brands, like emerging collections trends? Does that impact the direction of what you will see on Cult Mia moving forward? Or are independent brands so independent that they all have a variety of selection? Is it Fashion Month every month on Cult Mia because there's a variety for everyone? You might need to educate me a little bit here. Does Fashion Month and these big headline brands influence the style and the trends of the whole industry, buying trends, looks, for example?
So I would say more so before than today. A lot of brands, even some of the biggest brands, are no longer following the typical fashion calendar where they used to show, on a seasonal basis and then it pivoted to February and September. Um, that has definitely changed since the pandemic. But I would say that those trends that come out of Fashion Month definitely are watched very closely by both Cult Me and the broader industry. But we would always filter through them through a lens of what our customer is looking for. If we see a trend that resonates with our values and our customer appetite, then we would kind of actively seek out those brands or those products. I do think Fashion Month serves as a huge inspiration for us. But we would always, I would say, stay true to kind of our mission of promoting values driven shopping. But also, I would say, if you look at an incredible customer insights piece that we did earlier this year, our customer tells us that they do think Cult Mia sets trends, but also they equally see the products that they buy through Cult Mia as being investment pieces and timeless, which is a slight contradiction, but I understand where they're coming from, where they feel cool and on trend with what they're buying, but it's not something so related to the fashion moment of the month that it becomes obsolete in the next cycle. So it's finding
Yeah.
that balance.
When it comes to trends, you talked about sustainability and inclusivity maybe as well. So tell me how you've seen that trend evolve. You said that was one of your key anchor points of why you launched the business. you said it caught on. I think I heard you say it caught on quicker and faster than you expected. How's that evolving? And, how are you seeing that? How important is that to consumers now?
So I would say sustainability continues to be at the forefront of the luxury fashion agenda. I think customers want to assume that it's now a given rather than something that doesn't exist or is in its earliest stages. However, I would be lying to you if I told you that the luxury shopper now buys something just because it's sustainable. And I still think the ranking order when you're going to make a decision, putting myself in the customer's shoes, is, do I like the product? Do I like the style, the design? Is the quality there? Is the price point there? Then it's an extra tick when something is sustainable, and obviously inclusive. So I think if a customer hears that those two elements of sustainability and inclusivity aren't there, it's a problem. But if it is there, it doesn't mean that they're going to buy it just because it's there. It's literally becoming the baseline expectation. Um, I think there's a lot of pressure on designers, both big and small, to make quick improvements on their ESG journeys. And I would always kind of caution and challenge that thinking, where it's going to take time and it's not realistic to expect the same from smaller brands versus bigger brands. And especially the emerging designers that we work with, they might not even have the tools, resources, or knowledge to go along that journey. And that's something that we haven't talked about so far, but that's something that we bring to the table to our partnerships in terms of really educating brands, helping them identify improvements in their sustainable journeys. And we actually reward them if they make improvements with us. So we're really trying to incentivize sustainable growth with Cult Mia, both on the ESG side and commercially.
Okay, that's good. So, by being a collective for these independent designers, it really feels like you can also provide not just a marketplace, a platform. Is there a lot of that, or do you plan on doing more of that two-way education, community, best practices? Is that normal for you, or is that something you're going to evolve on? Because that example you just give me is an insight to me. I can see how you're in a very powerful position to just help businesses help themselves. These are small, medium-sized businesses. Like we said earlier, you can't focus on all these priorities all at once, right? The priority is making great garments.
Yeah. I I would like to make it a more, I would say, external facing part of the business. Right now, the work that we do happens one to one with the designers. It happens behind the scenes. Um, One of the reasons why I liked the fact that H&M Ventures just invested in Cult Mia last month is because they are one of the longest standing kind of sustainability experts in the industry, dating back to Patagonia, real kind of sustainable market leaders. And we had really interesting conversations around how can we, as Cult Mia, we have kind of that wealth of knowledge relative to our emerging designers. Imagine the wealth of knowledge H&M has compared to Cult Mia, given the business sizes. How can we team up to really share that pool of resources, really create an interesting community for our independent designers to learn from us and with us. And also, I'm honestly quite conscious of not taking on that entire responsibility on our own, because at the end of the day, we are a values driven business, but we aren't, B Corp mandated kind of. I guess what I'm trying to say is I would rather bring on additional expertise with us than bear that sole responsibility, given it's a topic that's always changing and there's always more to learn in the sustainable space.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think being a resource, pointing people in the right direction for all categories of information or knowledge, they can
Mhm.
find that external, but it happen you have similar customer base. on the marketplace. So I can see why that's right. But you can't. You're right. You can't be an expert in all of these fields. You can be good in what you do, and yeah, I think that will be a natural community evolution. These are competing businesses on your marketplace, but some standardization, advice, guidance. It sounds like one-on-one is the best tool for that right now. It's a two-way conversation. It's not just a transactional marketplace. We can, that's always in any, I don't know, commercial business negotiation when you pull in these great new designers onto the platform. You want to learn more about the business. You dig deeper and you understand the personalities behind it. So you mentioned technology there. How do you see the technology evolving, or use of technology evolving in maybe luxury fashion or online fashion? Are we where we are? Is it the best it's going to be? Do you see any exciting innovations? I mean, it's always challenging. E-commerce is challenging, right? It's massive, but it's challenging. You're buying an item of clothes, especially fashion, on a website, fit, texture, you talked about all these things, quality. It's hard to portray. Not impossible, but harder. How can technology, and maybe I'm talking about only one side of the technology, there's fulfillment and all of the above, returns and the whole user experience. Have you seen in the last few years that improving, or is e-commerce pretty standard in what's good now? And are there any technological advances that are exciting you, particularly for the future?
Mm. I think technology is going to still drive significant change in fashion, especially through, I would say, innovations and AI powered personalization, virtual try ons, digital fashion, also ways of cutting costs for brands in terms of kind of AI created product imagery. I think it will drive a lot of efficiency behind the scenes, but also significantly improve the customer experience. And a lot of businesses have been throwing huge amounts of money to solve some of these problems that relate to returns, that relate to um, virtual fitting rooms, that relate to being able to also have recommended products based on your profile needs and preferences. And all of that together will make online shopping more and more frictionless. But I think we still have a way to go. I think we still have a lot to look forward to. And I wouldn't say it's something that we're necessarily focused on developing in house, because I do think there are businesses literally dedicated to solving those problems. And I'm really
I
looking
agree.
forward to whenever they release their technologies and bringing them under
Yeah,
the,
get it,
the
get in
Cultura
touch, get
roof.
in touch.
Get in touch for sure. But all of this to say, I think tech will still play a huge role in kind of fashion across the spectrum.
I agree. And the hardest thing for you mentioned at the very beginning of this conversation, priorities are super important, right? So prioritizing, it's really hard. I find that really hard in when we're looking at technologies and innovation. It's hard to decipher what's novelty, what's a nice to have, and what's a must have, and all of these virtual try-ons and all of this stuff. We're in a world where technology in consumers' hands are beyond what it was years ago. The ability to measure and all of the above, even color matching, something so simple. I know I look good with one color top and another color, and I'm a guy who's no good at fashion, right? So it's you enabling in the future the flexibility of your customers somehow with technology and innovation is going to lead to them being more comfortable, happier with their purchases. However that evolves, I can see. But technology is good enough today to provide significant value for a marketplace. It works and the systems are in place. So I agree. Some advice now, right? You're years into this journey. You are a founder and entrepreneur of a successful business. It's already successful. It's growing. It's going places. If this is the first time people have heard about Culmia, I don't think it's going to be the last time. I think we're at that breakout stage. Hopefully, fingers crossed. What advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs like you were not so long ago, who want to enter specifically the fashion industry? Any advice to give them? Because they're probably watching right now.
I would say reflecting especially on this conversation, but something that I really believe in. When you look at the fashion industry, there are 33 million independent designers out there, and most of them fail not because they lack creativity, but because they don't have a robust and sustainable business model. So, my advice would be to really focus on the business fundamentals. And this probably applies to any industry, but in particular to fashion.
Fashion is a creative industry, right? So it's quite hard to get the creatives and the business. It's doable, but you definitely need to wear both hats, I think. So there you go. Focus on the good business model and the rest of it will take care of itself, maybe. Future vision. Tell me a little bit of insight into the future plans for Colmia. What are we going to see and expect in the next few years? I mean, you've already, in front of my eyes, expanded internationally, and that looks like it's going very well. So I see that live now. Maybe touch upon that. But anything else? What are we looking forward to next week, next month, next year, beyond?
I think, our big goal is to be the independent luxury fashion marketplace for the world. And you're right that international expansion is a really key pillar, one of four in my world. Um, we'll really focus on deepening in our top two markets, which currently are the US and the Middle East, where we're really seeing explosive growth. The second, I would say, forward looking pillar is brand expansion, but knowing that curation is still king, we want to grow our brand count in a productive way, and in an exclusive way. And then third is testing out new product categories. There are adjacent categories that we know our existing customer wants and loves, everything spanning from, maternity to children's wear to home, and then eventually reaching out to a new customer potentially, which could be men's. And then fourth, and something that I think is really interesting and also kind of summarizes some of the topics we've touched on, is B2B. There is so much more that we can do with and for our brand partners. And that's something that I'd like to build out in the next, let's say, 3 years, and really explore how we can deepen our relationships with our designers, really build that community, and support them in ways beyond just listing their products online.
That's a nice handful of exciting ideas. You've excited me there on some of them obvious moves and direction. I think your brand and the name and the positioning that you've already achieved leads naturally to a lot of this. I'm a big believer that consumers uh, who spend on one area could easily spend on other areas if they love and adore and are very happy with your product. And it's just time and the right setting and how you evolve and emerge into that. But if you can go deeper into their wallet and lifestyle, that could be fascinating, right? So good luck when you make the moves into that in the future. And there's no rush, right? There's plenty of growth just in the core proposition you've got, but that really adds some zeros to the end on the size and scale of that opportunity. So exciting. Uh, Personal reflection, okay? What keeps you motivated during some of the toughest times in your entrepreneurial journey? Reflect on, it's good. We're happy today. You opened this session about we're on a high, we're growing really fast, the team are super motivated. You must have been in positions where you were like, oh shit, the moments where it's been, this is difficult, there's a major thing, I don't know, running out of cash, it tends to happen in startups, or any other major issue that's come up, and you really, maybe, I don't know if it's ever happened, you doubted or you worried or you doubted yourself. Like, how do you keep yourself motivated? I believe entrepreneur journey isn't up and to the right. It's very volatile. You can feel great one day, you can feel super stressed and down the next. I don't know if that's your personality. I think that's normal from what I see, but how do you keep yourself motivated is the key part of that question.
I think it's the people around me. And I would say people within the team, but also the designers that we work with, and seeing their brands thrive, I would say, is a huge motivator. Getting stories from some of our designers saying, thanks to Cult Mia, I was able to put, my two kids through school, given the extra kind of income we've generated. That is just wow for me, and really kind of goes back to my time at the UN, and kind of the values, and kind of lifting up kind of communities in need, that really resonates with me, and I think really makes me tick. But also, it takes an army. It's very much not a one woman show. And knowing that together as a team, we're tackling some of the biggest challenges, uncharted waters in the fashion industry. Um, I personally love that no day's the same. There's always a new problem. I was always that person who performed better on a test or an assignment when it was time bound and there was some kind of pressure. There's a lot of pressurized moments in this journey, and I think that's very motivating for me personally. But I think, that kind of shared vision collectively with everyone that I work with across kind of the cult meal world um, helps me kind of push through those moments and push boundaries and really keeps me motivated to move forward.
That's good. I mean, very good. Do you find being an entrepreneur? I don't know. Does it fulfill you more? Does it give you gratification more than your previous roles?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I honestly can't imagine doing something else. Um,
Mhm.
I love the business that I'm building. I really, I think, thrive personally in looking at the foundational building blocks and the impact that I can have in every step of the way. Um, I think I didn't mention this in my intro, but I started a business when I was 19. I was a student at university, and I saw, the the students at Stanford were hungry because the dining halls would close at like 7 p.m. And then I thought, why not connect Palo Alto restaurants with hungry students? And I got some friends driving around and delivering food orders to students on campus. It was a very early days Uber Eats or Deliveroo that at 19 I didn't know how to scale. But I found that very early on, I would say in my life, building something from scratch is what I found to be the most rewarding and most exciting. And that entrepreneurial seed really stayed with me. And I went through a few different roles that I explained in the intro, but nothing really has given me the energy and the excitement and the drive that building Cult Mia has. And I think everything that I honestly love has come together in a business. Um, but that's, again, I'm sure you've caught me on a good day, and on another day I might say something else. But overall, I really do feel this way.
No, it's nice. It's very good to hear, and I think you've definitely got to love what you do because it's not easy. You make it sound badly. You make it sound easy, right? And we're not going into some of the challenges. It's not easy, and I
No.
try and reflect on that too. Wannabe entrepreneurs or soon to be entrepreneurs on it's grueling, and sometimes I try and put people off. I think I might have said the same to you when we talked on our various investment steps before we invested. I probably said to you, it's silly to say, but are you sure this is, you'd already taken capital. So, but it's, if someone's taken their first time venture capital check, I'm not there to try and put them off. I'm jokingly when I say that, but really what I'm trying to do is give them a wake up call that it's grueling and it's tough and it's pressured and there's bad days, very bad days. You get super highs, but you also get super stressful lows. And if you've got the next question's on work-life balance. If you've had a tough day in your home life and you're having a tough day at work, that's a bloody tough day. Like you can normally walk out a 9 to 5 job and forget about it. On a business, it doesn't really switch off. So that all happens, and I think you've got to be a certain character to thrive off that and even be able to handle it. So onto that work-life balance, and this is I don't know, slightly controversial one because you may not have a work-life balance. Some founders don't. It's literally work, work, work. But it's also super healthy that you are able to switch off and have me time and recharge. How do you manage that or maintain that? Is there anything you do specifically to separate, or it's hard to achieve, I'm sure, but any advice on what you do and what works for you?
I think For me, the biggest change in work life balance was becoming a mom. We talked about it briefly before we started recording. I have a year and a half year old daughter. And that was, I would say, a very positive forcing mechanism to try and set some kind of boundaries. Um, I think no day is going to be the same. And some days you'll lean more into your CEO hat, another day, maybe a little bit more into your family, and try and kind of over time find the right balance. But I'm honestly still figuring it out and adapting. But I would say I focus on quality time with family and friends, and really take time for activities that allow me to recharge. I love exercise. I love kind of unplugging for a bit. But I, I found what was quite liberating was to realize that, at least for me, balance, it's not just about the time, but about really being present in whatever you're doing. So I try to stay fully focused on work during the working hours that I set for each day, and equally committed to kind of personal time when I am off, rather than trying to kind of count the exact minutes up and compare.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. Everyone needs their own system and own schedule, and being able to flexibly move in and out of that and get the balance is important. I think it's a really important question, hence it's one of our latter questions. No, I think that's super important, and it sounds like you're evolving that. I didn't mention you being a mom because it's your information, but I'm glad you threw it in, because some people would even gasp at that, because not that it's bad or anything, but it's just another thing. Like, being a mom's a big job, right? I'm a parent, and I have twins, right? And they are a handful, and normally they'll jump on the back of this camera while I'm while I'm mid session, you know. But it's balancing it. Mine's a little bit older than yours, so maybe they're a little bit more independent. But there's nothing more fulfilling for me. It also gives me more motivation to build for the future, because it's not me and my future; it's their future too. So success to lead to experiences and life and time is all very important, right? Final question, a random one. What core value do you have? Do you live by? Do you work by? Is there a core value you pride yourself in? And it could be anything. It's not, you obviously have values, but what core value it makes you tick or makes you operate?
I would say it's a bit cheesy, but I would say positivity. I kind of approach life with always giving everyone, you know, the ability to assume positive intent. I think goes a long way in everything that you do, whether it's independently or collectively. Um, and that feeds into trust. And I think when you approach life knowing that others and yourself are coming with positive intent, you can really build trusting and kind of long-standing relationships. I would say that's something that's very core to me specifically.
I like that one. It's very important, right? You sneaked a second one in. Trust is indirectly in there. So, positive, yeah, be positive, be that shining light. I think super important in life. And one of the things I probably didn't realize, I did, but I didn't really in depth in my mind realize until I was a good few years into my entrepreneurship journey with working with people, is they are people. They have personal lives. They have their personal worries. Because I expect everyone to achieve and strive and deliver. And everyone that works with me knows that. You know that from me working with you. And at the same time, I know you're independent. You have a family. You have children. I don't know half of what your life is, and you don't know mine, and you don't know who you're working with or meeting. So be kind. You've got to be understandable. So it doesn't cost anything to be that positive person. And it doesn't cost anything to be nice and be kind and just make that little gesture. And I think that's an important, maybe nice finishing line, because in business and in capitalism and growth and building all of the above. Hey, did you hear my doorbell go off then? That was a perfect timing for me to wrap up. Probably my own child coming in. I did say past, so they're a little bit early, but all good. But Nina, that was really good. So thank you for that session. And I think it's going to be great insight for others listening to this session. But good luck with your business. It's flying. I look forward to people watching this session in the future, maybe years ahead, and maybe laughing at the size and scale you were today because you're going to become enormous. But thank you very much and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much. This was such an amazing conversation. Have a good evening and see you soon, Mark.